one day, long, long ago, an ad caught my eye that said improvised feature film. At that point, it was called the Black Hills Project.
Okay.
But the main thing was that it was an improvised feature film. That, to me, that stopped me dead in my tracks, because that is
doing improv.
Wow, that's a dream. That's creative freedom that you can only think about in your imagination that never actually happens. And then there was that whole part about wooded location and all that. But, you know, I kind of put that out of my mind for the moment and concentrated on the improvised feature part. And went in with hundreds of other people, because obviously a lot of people thought this was a good idea, and went back time and time again.
Actually, this was the ad that was on the wall.
Oh, the scare note.
When you
to
went
try to get
the
people
audition.
to leave it. Yeah.
Now, I would run as fast as I could if I said, you are about to read for the most demanding and unpleasant project of your career. If you are cast, we're going to drag you into the woods for 7 days of hell. 168 hours of real-time improvisational torment. We're not kidding. So if you're not serious about your craft, then you're wasting your time and ours. You read this and
I said,
going for it.
These are people I want to work with.
Oh my gosh. Well, good for you.
So it was very important from the very start that we make it clear to people that this wasn't a conventional, film.
We came up with this, real-time format to shoot, those solid 8 days out in the woods and keep the actors immersed in their characters as much as possible. We guided them through the woods with this GPS system, this global positioning system, that allowed the actors to remain isolated, but yet still in contact with us.
We had little instructions put in milk crates with big bicycle flags, and we could spot them using the GPS.
And we wouldn't know what each other's character motivation was. So a lot of the time, we would be conflicting in what our goal for the scene would be. That in itself created a lot of tension.
Wake up like at 2 in the morning and we'd walk out there, a mile to the location, and we'd sneak up on them and we'd make sure they're asleep, make sure nobody's talking.
And they were setting up, sound loops of babies crying and kids laughing outside at 10 and 4 in the morning.
Basically, it was just us running through trees and going nuts out there in the complete darkness.
I think it was by about the 4th day that, the insanity really came into play.
The Blair Witch Project is a horror movie, but it was marketed as a compilation of footage found in the woods made by 3 missing film students. Most people believed it at the time, and it became a hit. The movie became a catalyst for the found footage genre, inspiring movies like Paranormal Activity, Wreck, and Creep. It also became a common reference in popular entertainment like Scooby-Doo, Bones, Dawson's Creek, and The Office.
The Scranton Witch Project.
I am so scared when people don't label their personal food.
The method of this torture fest made it terrifyingly real, because it kinda was. Although going into it knowing full well it wasn't real, I was still completely terrified. It was hard for me to believe that so many people bought into the illusion, because it seemed highly unlikely that the found footage could be so good at building tension within a very clear structure. Most complaints about the movie is that it doesn't show anything, and that it's mostly 3 people arguing in the woods. Is that really true? Heather, Josh, and Mike are film students making a documentary on the Blair Witch in Burkittsville, with a borrowed DAT camera they need to deliver back before Monday. After interviewing locals about the horrifying legends, they venture into the woods to film a stone graveyard. One of the legends include a child murderer would make his victims face the wall while he killed the other. After finding the graveyard, Josh knocks over one of the stone piles. Then they try to return to their car, only to get increasingly lost while the nights get increasingly scarier. They constantly bicker about the navigation, and later Mike is revealed to have thrown away the map in anger. That night their tent is attacked, and in the morning Josh's stuff is smeared with goo and thrown around. They walk south all day, still bickering, and end up in the exact same place. Josh disappears that night. Falling further into insanity, Heather and Mike keep walking. And after a night of hearing Josh's screams, Heather finds a bundle of sticks outside their tent, tied together with Josh's clothing, containing chunks of his body. After completely losing their minds during that day, they turn in for their final night. After Heather snottily apologizes to everyone's mom, they hear Josh screaming for help. They locate an abandoned house as they follow his screams. and then get separated in the house as Mike sprints to the basement where the screams are coming from. Heather ends up finding Mike standing in the corner, facing the wall, as she gets struck down off camera. And then the camera dies out. So it is true. We never see the witch or anything other than Josh's spindle. And most of the movie is bickering. Let's explore how these faults might be the movie's strongest points. By having the characters speak to the camera and filming from their perspective, the character's point of view becomes our own.
Got it? Okay, I got you.
The beginning sets up our characters, having fun and preparing for the project, making us in the very least interested in their well-being. Through local interviews and Heather's exposition for the documentary, they are being demanded to imagine what they may encounter in the woods. A woman in white, hovering over the ground, covered in thick black fur. A witch so powerful she made a man ritualistically murder 7 children, having one child face the corner of the room as the other was slaughtered. She also allegedly mutilated 5 campers on the Coffin Rock. Choosing a witch as a looming creature was a clever choice, as they are entities with seemingly unlimited potential, unknown and varied, linked to all forms of the supernatural like vampires, golems, and werewolves. By imagining the terror, it becomes even more personal. So having these strong images planted in our minds, we follow them as they get increasingly lost in the woods, building tension in between the characters. This is heightened by the ticking bomb of Josh's stolen DAT, their black and white camera, which he needs to get back in time.
No one knows I took it, but I got it.
As they lose the map and end up in the exact same place, we experience by proxy what is called learned helplessness, where by repeated trial we have learned that there is no hope of getting out. This all is lost point raises the stakes from returning the DAT to surviving the woods, which provides its own ticking clock as the witch gets increasingly aggressive. The relentless arguing puts us on edge, evoking feelings from the universal experiences of witnessing and participating in conflict. It plays a key part in the emotional build. The stakes continue to rise as Josh disappears and his blood, flesh, and teeth are gifted to the remaining crew. All the arguing gives us secondary traumatic stress as we constantly are faced with a conflict at us, the camera.
I don't know why you can't admit that you've been screwed from the moment we got out here, man.
The last night we see the desperate apology from Heather, with a raw emotion of snot and tears, which permits us to view her as a real human being, with the ability to feel, bleed, and agonize. Again, raising the stakes. The movie persistently makes you feel like it's real, engages your imagination, reminds you of the ticking clocks, agitates you with the bickering, and confronts you with hopelessness. All this serves to constantly build the tension, as there's no terror in the bang, only in the anticipation of it. Only some helpful sprinkling of lighter moments keeps us afloat as our blood pressure skyrockets. The movie finishes with the bang of the abandoned house, giving us one final fright.
Ed and I both, try to do something different with a genre that we felt was kind of, maybe getting a little old over time.
We started talking about horror films and what kind of films scared us when we were little kids, and we had kind of the same horror films, The Shining and The Exorcist.
So we felt Blair was in that same spirit, something that was a psychological horror, which we feel is much scarier than, just getting a knife in the neck or something like that.
They set out to create a classic psychological horror, and they succeeded. Although on the surface, it's mostly a movie about 3 people arguing in the woods.